Welcome back, ladies and gents, to American Arms Channel. Today, we're out here on the Platte River in central Nebraska, playing with several different things, including my Silencer Co. Scythe TI. But we're going to feature here this afternoon something that we haven't covered in a very long time on this channel, and that is the 2545 Sharps. That does not mean that I do not love this cartridge and have not enjoyed it fully on the range and in the field. But I just have not gotten around to really focusing on any loads. One load that I left off on and never created a video on was the 117 grain Round Nose Interlock by Hornady. We have 50 of them here loaded up in Lake City 556 cartridge cases that have been resized, and the primer pockets opened up slightly to accept a primer since they were all staked. So this is military 556 brass, not 223, but I have developed this load with both, and at 24 grains of my favorite powder for this cartridge, a 2200, it seems to be a good choice. It is 90 degrees out today here in late September in Nebraska, and it is very dry, and I do not like it at all. I want some cooler weather, and that is besides the point. But do take that in consideration that this is a full house load and is probably reaching max pressures. I have been successful with it down to around 22.5 grains, but I like to throw 24 because the primary use for all of my cartridges are cold weather, and most powders that I have utilized for this cartridge, as well as others, have had some form of temp sensitivity. That said, we are going to try and grab some velocity readings today, as well as some accuracy results. What we are going to do is run out of two 2545 rifles. I have my 18-inch heavy barrel 1 in 9 twist, and then I have a 20-inch rifle that I had built for my father, and this is a 1 in 10-inch twist with a medium contour or light profile barrel. Both are free float rails, both are operating off of either a mid-length or a rifle-length gas system. They both are set up pretty dang close, even with their optics, although this is a 3-to-12 optic and this is a 3-to-9. We will be suppressing both of these rifles here today, and I will be using the brass catcher, although we will take a look at the angle of ejection for a couple rounds. All of that said, let's put these on paper and talk about our velocity averages if my chronograph behaves, and what purposes this round might have. So we're going to fire 3 3-shot groups with this cartridge. Again, 24 grains of A2200. This is a CCI number 400 small rifle primer. We're going to go to lock back on each one, and we're going to equip the rifles with brass catcher here so that we can contain our cartridge cases and have an easy look at whether or not they are showing some overpressure signs. Again, this is going to be a fairly warm load with this 117 grain round nose, but I have not seen any warning signs of problems. Again, if you wanted to take this and work it up, a good starting grain weight is 20.5 grains, 20.5, and you can go up to 24 from there. I would call 24 the max, and again, you just need to play with it in your cartridge. 2230 might also be a good powder for this, as well as other similar burn rate powders. I digress. We're going to put these all on paper here and see what we can come up with. Starting off with the 18-inch. I've not had any reliability issues seating these to the cannelure, and we're going to put our ear pro on because shooting a suppressed AR, you get some pop. But you guys will maybe get some indication of what the sound signature is suppressed. Hitting a little bit low, but I'm not going to adjust anything. I didn't pay attention to my chronograph, but it says 1558, and I know for certain that is not correct. So let's take a look at our brass here. We've got some flattening And that is characteristic of loading this cartridge into 5.56 cases. And it looks like we had a loose primer pocket, because that is a very loose primer pocket. That came right on out. So we will see how the rest of these fare, but not really any ejector swipes. Probably is not helping that the ammunition is sitting in the sun. But we will let the rifle cool here. We'll get this ammunition out of the direct sunlight, and we will continue on in just a moment. All right, so we're going to see if this chronograph will agree now. We've let the barrel cool a little bit, but being that it's almost 90 degrees outside with no wind, at least there's a light breeze, but not really any wind to speak of, we're not going to get very far with letting the rifle just sit. So we're going to find some heated accuracy, I guess you could say. First group doesn't look the greatest, probably around 2-ish inches, but that could be me. So we're going to take a look at group 2 here and see what happens. 2460, that is much closer to what I expect, around 2375 with this loading. 6717, yeah, this chronograph is messed up, so we are not going to be relying on it here this afternoon. Slight ejector swiping. These primers are a little bit soft, and I don't like that they have seated very easily in the cases once I've deburred them. 5.56 brass has been difficult for me to utilize, I've noticed in the past, but as long as you don't have a primer push itself out while cycling, you usually are just fine. So we are going to assess that these are loaded a bit hot, but without the ejector swipes being there, it's really not too much of a problem. Again, I'm looking at probably around 2375 for the average in cooler weather. I have not had primers pushing out in 223 brass, and I have found that to eliminate any chance of warm weather, you want to drop just below that 23.5 grain mark with a 2200. Again, 2230 could be a good choice for this, but it's a very reliably feeding cartridge in the 2545 sharps I've found for this round nose. You wouldn't expect as such, but it's a pretty reliable little cartridge. No feeding issues overall. So we're going to take another look here. Last 3-shot group. Now that was a much better group, and I don't know if that was me or what. 2484 on that last shot. Yeah, I have had some trouble with 5.56 brass showing higher pressures than, oops, drop that guy, but it's a little bit flat here. I'm not super concerned about it. It's reliably cycling. It's not overdriving the bolt. It doesn't feel bad. The projectile is stabilized. It's just a higher pressure load. It's probably pushing over that 55,000 psi limit that we typically establish for ARs. It's getting towards that 60-ish thousand. You definitely need to take that into consideration. I am doing something that is not recommended, but I have decided to go ahead and do it anyways. But with that said, I think the projectile and the powder choices that we have available that work with the cartridge case, that 223 base case, the parent, it has definitely got potential to go between 2250 and 2450 FPS, which is more than ample with that 117 gram projectile for use at 200 yards and in on medium game. That heavier bullet is going to penetrate pretty well, but you're not going to have a very good retention of velocity. So it's going to be a short range load, but definitely going to dump all of its energy. So use case would be for general medium game hunting. You could use it in closer quarters on black bear, even maybe larger game if you so chose, something like smaller elk or mule deer, or maybe even Moose if you so chose. There have been much lower power cartridges that have been successful doing that. I'm not saying it's ideal, but it is an option if you were making that choice just for the fun of it and being very conscious of your capabilities with the cartridge. Let's swap this over to the 20-inch and then we'll go down range and take a look at our three-shot groups working left to right. Okay, we're going to swap over to the 20-inch now. Again, this is a 1 in 10 twist and not a 1 in 9. I'm not going to put the brass catcher on it. We can risk losing a couple of pieces of brass here, but we're just going to check out the ejection out of this 20-inch and show to you guys what it's capable of. Again, we're going to shoot left to right on the target board, 3 shots each. Let's start with the first 3-round group. Let's try it out. Now that shot I felt pull and it flew wild. And check the tightness of my suppressor. We're all good there. Had one bounce back at me. Same story, no different look here on the 20-inch. Maybe just slightly different because of the increased dwell time. I will say that's one thing that's nice about a longer barrel and gas system is that you don't have the issues that you can see out of a shorter barrel and shorter gas system with ejection and case marking. I've seen shorter gas system rifles, carbines, 16-inch down to 10.5-inch, and just 5.56 with factory loads that are a little bit warmer. You know, military, Lake City stuff, XM193, M855, etc. Put some swipe marks and flatten some primers. Not necessarily that it's the load itself that's overcharged, but it's just the nature of the beast of that action unlocking a little bit before it would be optimal to. So we'll give this guy another few seconds here, and then we'll go into group 2. It was looking good. I stacked 2 right next to each other, and then I don't know what happened, kind of yanked that third cartridge. And hopefully that means we didn't have a baffle strike or anything, but I don't think we did. It kind of went off a little bit early for me. But low and left, just like on the 18-inch, which is at least consistent. Both of these rifles are sighted in for 100 grain or 80 grain projectiles, both about the same point of impact at 100 or so yards between the 80 grain TTSX and the 100 grain Mauser boat tail. So let's take a look at group 2 here. Not very good. A lot of vertical stringing. Perhaps the 1 in 10 does not like this weight projectile. Okay, last group we're going to shoot through the 20-inch here. And then we're going to go check out all of them. I did run down range to see if maybe we had some off-center impacts that were indicating a non-stabilized projectile, but did not find that, and so we are going to continue on. We should be okay. We shouldn't have a baffle strike. Knock on wood. We're just going to see what the 20-inch wants to do at 100 yards, and while it's still usable, obviously you'd like to see 2 inches or better out of an AR for moderate range hunting. Let's take a look at group number 3, and then we'll go downrange and look at all of them. And like the 18-inch, the third group looks to be the best. Lock back, no issues, but it looks like we don't want to go into battery, which is weird, and I wonder why that is. it looks to be that we have a blown primer floating in the chamber there, which is not good. So we want to take a look at these guys and make sure that we're not going to lose a primer. I think most of this is me opening up the primer pockets, but this is a warmer load and it's 90 degrees outside, so we need to drop the powder charge. Another load development video. This is what I go through. The 2545 Sharps does not really have a significant amount of load data out there. There's a good number of bullet weights that you can run through it. And when you're chasing the optimum performance out of each load, well, you want to try and push the boundaries, but that could lead to some problems, obviously. Is it the primer? Is it the cartridge case? Is it the primer pocket of the cartridge case? What did I do? You've got to go through all of these things when you're considering stuff. I might have to disassemble the remainder of these loads and make sure that we drop the powder charge and take a look again. I know that I've heavily tested this in 223 marked Remington and PMC brass in not lost primers. Is it 556 cases that will increase the pressure? And because they require the primer pockets to be swaged open a little bit to get the primers in without smashing them, well, that could be a reason as to why they don't want to stay in their primer pocket. The primers, that is. So, all things you have to fuddle your way through, especially when you don't have a ton of time. I'm just some dumbass on the internet, so take it for what it's worth. But I honestly, if you're going to use A2200 or A2230 or Exterminator, I would say that you want to start somewhere around the 20 and a half grain mark and work up from there with this bullet. But as far as what the 18-inch is doing, it's about par for the course. It's not the most accurate one, but you might want to take a look at what twist rate you've got in your barrel, because 1 in 10 might not give you the best results, but a 1 in 9 or 1 in 8 would be perfect. Let's go down range and take a look. Okay, ladies and gents, the top row is the 18-inch barrel, and the bottom row is the 20-inch. Let's start off with the 18 and then go on down to these guys, which are not so pretty. Not horrendous, but we're getting towards about a 2-inch group here. Nice center burns, no unstable bullet entrances here. Kind of the same pattern here. I can tell you that was 1, 2, and 3, and then again 1, 2, and 3. Not sure why it was following that pattern, but there you go. And then we move to group 3 here, and it's actually super tight. And if I remember correctly, it was 1, 2, and 3. So again, our first 2 shots are close, low, and left from our point of aim. And so pretty consistent, although this guy didn't go high, but it did go left. They all felt really good, with the exception of maybe this second shot here. Now we come down to the 20-inch barrel, and again, looks pretty dang stabilized. Same sort of pattern, but this round I definitely pulled, not sure of the order. But you can see 2 close and 1 pulled. It should be closer here. Now we've got these 3 here. Vertical stringing is kind of wacky, and not sure why that happened. All 3 of those shots felt really good, and that's why I went down and checked that these were actually coming in center. Then shot 3 here, we tightened it up yet again. All 3 felt great. Not sure of the order, wasn't really paying attention, just focusing on my point of aim. And that's not terrible. All 18 shots are going to kill a deer, a bear, any small game animal, or medium game animal, excuse me, that you put these on target with. Of course, once you have them zeroed, this is obviously not zeroed for the point of aim, but you're going to have to be mindful that, one, and at least in the 5.56 cases, there seems to be some pressure issues at 24 grains of A2200, and that you're having some primer pocket looseness issues, which is my problem. If you're loading standards and you get them going the way you want them, 2,300 to 2,400 foot per second is completely possible. It'll be more than enough for whitetail deer, black bear, mule deer at 200 yards and in. You could push it farther, of course, but I just draw the line at 200. It's for heavier brush hunting, right, in a fast semi-automatic carbine or rifle, is what the AR would do for you in that chambering, of course. So, as always, guys, you got to just play with it in your rifle. This is just kind of a demo of maybe what you can expect, but we can see there is potentially a little bit of a difference in consistency of groupings between a 20-inch and an 18-inch with two different twist rates. If they were the same twist rates, we probably would see relatively the same. Out of that 20-inch, you're going to garner a little bit more speed. Topped out, I would recommend the Remington brass, 223 brass, upsized to 2545, of course, and loaded at about 23.8 to 24 grains. You're going to get just over 2400. And then the 18-inch and 16-inch, you're going to be below 2400 at around 2375 down to 2325. You're going to lose about 50 feet per second per inch to 2 inches of barrel. So, with that said, let's wrap the video up. Well, as always, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you have any questions, comments, or thoughts, leave them down below in the comments section, or you can write me at AmericanArmsChannel@gmail.com. If for some reason you can't find American Arms Channel on YouTube anymore, you can find it on Odyssey, where all videos to date have been backed up and are there for your viewing pleasure. As always, guys, God bless, keep your powder dry. I'll see you in the next video.